Welcome to another Figuring Out Japan video, and today I'm going to answer a question that a lot of people have asked me in the past, which is how do Japanese people actually type on a keyboard? And there's a lot of pictures like these that go around on the internet, and so I thought I'd make a video about how you actually type in Japanese. Now it's a fairly easy question to answer, but to answer it properly you kind of need to know how Japanese works. So first I'm sort of going to give a Japanese lesson, if you like, and if you have any other questions about Japan, feel free to leave a comment and I might answer that in a future video. But basically Japan uses 4 different writing scripts in their language, and I'm going to use the very simple example of fish. So the way that you say fish in Japanese is sakana. That's how you say fish in Japanese. And that's actually the first Japanese script, which is romaji. So romaji is basically Japanese words represented in English letters. But it's very important to note that the Japanese don't really use romaji. This is really just something used for foreigners or for foreign people. The only time that they might use romaji is for things like movie titles or something like that, but it's not something that you're going to see in newspapers or like business documents or that sort of stuff. They generally just don't use them. But yeah, maybe things like titles, also sometimes acronyms. They might use romaji like like a company name or just an acronym. They'll use that. You'll know like Sony, they use romaji, something that's global. But I strongly recommend that you don't use textbooks that actually use everything in romaji, like actual sentences in romaji, because the Japanese just don't use that as a way. So the second way that the Japanese write is using hiragana. Now again, here you can see the use of romaji. Something like this is fine. I mean, if you're learning Japanese for the first time, how are you going to know what these symbols mean without romaji? But again, I stress whole sentences, that's kind of what you want to avoid. Now some people say that hiragana is like the Japanese alphabet, and I think that's actually a pretty good analogy to use. So there are 46 hiragana. Now there aren't actually 46 symbols here because some of them double up. For example, if you put 2 little lines for some of these, for example, sa becomes za and ka becomes ga. So some of these change, but these are the symbols for hiragana, and you can kind of read or write anything in hiragana. So if you're going to learn Japanese, I think this is definitely the place to start trying to remember this table. So using my example before, this is the hiragana for sakana, and we can actually match these up. So this one you'll notice is sa, this one is ka, and this one is na. So it's sakana. Now it doesn't have to be like A. It could be anything, but it just happens to be in this example. So that's how you would say fish or write fish in hiragana. So the next one that they use is katakana. And katakana basically has the same format as hiragana, except the symbols are different. You're going to go, what's the point of that? Katakana is used for foreign words. So words that are not Japanese, they use katakana for. So generally this is things like place names, people names, also for just other things that didn't originate in Japan. So I've got some examples here. So here's just a very simple one, orenji. So orenji means orange. So o again, so you'll notice o matches up with here, re matches up with here, n matches up with here, and ji matches up with here. So this is what I was talking about before. This is shi, but with the 2 extra little symbols. I don't know if you can see it clearly on the screen, but this becomes ji. So if I wanted to represent this in Romaji, it would be orenji, which in this case can actually refer to both the color and the fruit. And actually, interestingly, Japanese do have a word specifically for orange, but this is, often these days, a lot of words like camera as well. Camera used to be written as like photo machine, but now they just say camera in katakana. So it would be kamera. And again, that would match with ka, me. Where is it? Me. And then ra. So here's another one, computer. So computer is computer. It's not a Japanese word. And again, actually going back to Romaji, so if they wrote PC, I mean, usually they say computer, but if they wrote PC, then they would use Romaji in that instance. Now, it's very important to note that non-Japanese doesn't mean English, okay? So there are words that don't come from English that they use in Japan. So one common example is pan. Pan means bread, and I think it's from a French word. So there's a lot of words like that. This one here is rentogen. Rentogen is actually means X-ray, and it actually comes from the inventor, the person who invented X-rays. I think his name was Wilhelm Röntgen. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. He was a German physicist. So in this case, they don't say X-ray, they say rentogen. And then just another example here I have is hochkiss. So hochkiss actually means stapler, and this word actually comes from the company who first imported staplers into Japan. The company's name was Hotchkiss, and actually the company now doesn't even exist anymore, but the Japanese didn't have a word for stapler, so they made this Hotchkiss word. So hopefully by that example you can kind of understand why Japanese use katakana. It is quite important both for foreigners learning the language and for Japanese people to understand, okay, this is not actually a Japanese word. So you're probably going, okay, that's not too bad. The Romaji, they don't really use hiragana. 95% of the time you're going to use hiragana and not katakana. So, okay, if I learn these, that's not too bad. There is, of course, the fourth type, which is kanji. And this is kind of what trips people over, including myself, because basically kanji is where one character means one word. So in this case here, the kanji for sakana is actually this. So above I showed you how to write it in hiragana, but actually in Japanese usually they will use kanji. And there are thousands of kanji. Now, there's a lot of stuff I could say about kanji. For example, a lot of words actually use 2 or 3 kanji together. There's different ways to read the same kanji, etc., etc. But I just want to keep it very simple, and hopefully you just understand that kanji, there are thousands of them. Basically, one word has a specific kanji, and you do need to learn the kanji because that's generally what Japanese use. Now, if you're like me, you're going to wonder, well, why do they use kanji? Why don't they just use hiragana? That should be fine, right? Well, I've used, again, just a very simple example here. So it says, watashi wa kohi o nomimasu. And this means I drink coffee. So this means I, this means coffee, and you'll notice that's in katakana, kohi, and then nomimasu means to drink. So these are written in kanji, or in this case katakana for coffee, and the hiragana is used for grammar. That's really the main reason why they use hiragana. So in this case here, this notes the topic of the sentence, and then this shows the relationship between coffee and the verb or the action, which is to drink. But it could be, I make coffee. It could be I spill coffee. It could be I like coffee. So you would use the right grammatical particle here to link them. So to use an analogy, the kanji are like the dots, and then the hiragana for the grammar are basically the lines that connect those dots to form the picture. So that's basically why it works. Now, you'll notice in Japanese they don't use spaces, and the way they can get away with that is because they use this kind of format. If they used just hiragana, it would be very difficult, even for me as a foreigner, it would be very difficult to read a whole sentence in hiragana because you don't really know where the word starts and where the word ends. So it's like in English trying to read a sentence with no spaces. So that's why they have this. Now you'll notice for drink, they actually have kanji and hiragana, and this generally happens for verbs, for actions. Because here, this says nomimasu, which is to drink. But I could change this to nomimasen, which is I don't drink. Or I could say nomimasen deshita, which is I didn't drink. Or I could say I drank too much, or I'm drinking, or I want to drink coffee, or I don't want to drink. So you can change this a lot of different ways. So that's why for actions they have both kanji and hiragana, which, as I said before, hiragana is for the grammar. Now, just for completeness sake, I will cover this one very quickly. This isn't this isn't one of the four, but furigana is where they have little hiragana written above the kanji. So this tells you how to read the kanji. And sometimes they use this in Japanese. They'll use it if the kanji is not a common kanji or it's difficult to read. They use it for things like children's books because Japanese children can't read every kanji. So things like comics, manga, Japanese comics. And then there are also some obscure examples like, for example, if you like Dragon Ball Z, you'll know the main dragon's name is Shenron. Shenron is a made-up name, so you would write that in katakana. But actually, his name has kanji, which is God, Dragon. So these two kanji literally mean God and Dragon. So you'll notice in Japanese they'll actually put katakana, and if you're interested, the way you can do that, this is on a Mac, but you can do it on Microsoft Word as well. So you go Format, Asian Layout, Phonetic Guide, and usually it will tell you what the correct one is. So actually this is how you read those kanji, Shin, Ryu. But in this case I would want to change that to hiragana, and I would put Shenron, and that's how you actually do it. So you can actually use Microsoft Word. If you see a kanji that you don't know how to read, copy and paste it into Word, use that Format, Asian Layout, Phonetic Guide, and find out the furigana, because most of the time it will tell you the correct answer. So let's get back to the original question, which is, so how do Japanese people actually write on a computer? Well, going back to that same example, if I want to type fish, remember which is sakana, I would type S-A, and that automatically changed to hiragana. I didn't press anything, and then K-A, and then N-A. And in this case, it came up with the correct kanji. And you'll see it's got a blue line, and it comes up with a list, because sometimes there are more than one kanji, but in this case it's the right kanji, so I just press enter and the kanji is entered. Sometimes it might be different though. For example, if I press S-A-K-A for sakana, but I just put sa and ka, I can press spacebar and it comes up with a list of different kanji. So here, saka means slope. So you may know Osaka, the city in Japan, is actually written as big slope. So this means slope. Or if I just type sa and press spacebar, there are different kanji for sa. So for example, this one means sagaru, which is to decline. So that's basically how you do it. But you just type in, I'm just using a normal, English keyboard, and it just comes up with different ways. So it's quite smart, the way that it does that. Now you can actually use Japanese keyboards where basically one key is one hiragana, which is quite difficult to get used to. But technically, I guess that would be quicker because one keystroke gives you one hiragana, whereas now it takes two. I have to press S and A to get sa. But generally that's how it works. But it's quite smart the way it does that. So for example, I'm on the hiragana setting, but if I type new, then it actually automatically changes it from hiragana to katakana, and it's got here New York news program. So here this is bangumi, so this actually uses kanji, news week, and Newton, and these are all katakana words. So it's smart enough to go, okay, I think this person's trying to write a foreign word. But if you actually want to change it, you can change it in the settings, and you just click and then select which one you want. Or if you know the shortcut key on there, so you'll notice this will change. I change it to katakana, change it to romaji, back to hiragana. So it's I hope you can see that on the screen. Maybe you can't. But anyway, I hope that allows you to sleep easy at night, and hopefully you learn a thing or two about the Japanese language. And to finish off, I'm going to leave you with this thought. How do you do it on a mobile phone, and how did they do it back in the days of a typewriter? Thanks for watching.